Hello friends, welcome back to the Photoshop Basics for Scrapbooking class. In today's final lesson on digital stamps, we're going to be covering the topic of changing colors. I am going to show you how you can change the entire stamp to a different solid color, how you can create multiple colors in one stamp set, and how you can actually clip inside of the stamp a photo in order to make a more textured look to your elements. We're going to do this both in Photoshop Creative Cloud and Photoshop Elements, and I've got a lot to cover. So let's head on over to the computer so I can show you all of the different ways that you can customize your stamps with color. Welcome back over here to my desktop. Today we're working on changing the colors of our stamps, be they PNG files or the brush stamps that we have been using from the past couple of weeks. The first thing we're going to do is start inside of Photoshop Creative Cloud, and I want to work with brushes first. I'm going to open up a new canvas because that's going to make this the easiest to see and understand. Now from here, what we're going to do is open up our brush tool and make sure we have whatever brush we want to use. Let's maybe do this camera just because that's kind of fun. Why not? And we'll put that away. So now, if I were to click on this canvas, changing no settings, my stamp is going to be black. Now to change the color of this stamp, you can do a couple of different things. If you want the entire stamp to be a different color, then you simply need to come down into your color swatches and change whatever the color is in your forefront or the top color swatch. You need to change that to whatever you want it to be. Maybe we want to use some kind of like a mustardy yellow. Sure. And now if I have the mustardy yellow, which is actually let's make you a bit brighter than that. How about this? So if we have this yellow color, and now I click on my canvas, the camera is going to show up in whatever color I have selected. If I wanted to take this camera and to make different parts of the camera colored differently, then I'm actually going to change the tool and I'm going to use my paint bucket instead. For this, I must first have stamped my image or the stamp set with the brush onto the page. So it has to already exist on the page. Then I can come in here and I can change different parts of it by painting in the section with my paint bucket. So if I were to click in this top portion, it's going to change that to yellow. Maybe I want the bottom to be pink and the center to be black and the top to be, teal, sure. Like so. And now that's how I want my camera to look. That allows me to customize the image to more of what I want it to look like with different or multiple colors. Now you can also do this with all of the other types of stamps as well, or specifically brush stamps as well. So let's say I wanted to do, instead of the camera, I wanted a word. And maybe the word I'm going to use is this one, good. Good will be the word. So if I stamp that onto the page, right now I have teal in the forefront because that's what I selected with my paint bucket. So the whole word is going to stamp onto the canvas in that teal color. I can then use my paint bucket to go back over it, and maybe I want it to be alternated teal and black, like so. So I just need to paint in those sections that I want to change to a different color. I hope so far I'm making sense. Now, another thing that you can do with the brush stamps, as we did last week, is you can create a new layer, not a new canvas, a new layer. And then you can add your stamp to, let me go grab my brush, you can add the stamp to the new layer. No, I want the paintbrush. There we go. From this, because it's on its own layer, I can now move it around and do all different kinds of things with it. Next month, we're going to be talking a lot about creating layouts and layer templates and all of that kind of stuff, where you're going to clip an image into a pre-existing shape. However, I do want to show you what this looks like in this sense because it's another way that you can change the color of your stamp, whether it is the brush on a different layer or a PNG. It works for both by clipping in an image into the word itself. So let me grab my eraser tool here. So I want to erase some of this so that, whoops, let's go to the background layer. I'm going to erase this so you can see it a little bit better. Okay, so let's bring good back down onto the page. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and open up a photo that we can then use. So I'm going to open this up here so it becomes a separate file. Let's copy or select all of it, copy it, and then we're going to paste it on top of layer 1. So now all we see is this background. And actually, let's position it so that the clouds in the sky are in the space where the word good is. With that positioned, I'm going to come over to the image on my layers panel, right click on the image, and we're going to go to this setting that says create clipping mask. When I select that, what it does is it clips my image into whatever the shape is underneath it. And in this case, the shape is the word good. So that allows me to quote unquote color the word good to have the sky and the clouds of the picture. I can merge these two layers together by selecting both of them, right clicking and merging those layers, and now I can move this around and use it however I like. So that's a way to create more texture with your stamps by actually taking the photos that you've taken and clipping them into those sentiments. Now, in a similar way, you can use the actual PNG. So for this one, let's get that same camera. Here we are. You can use the actual PNG in the same ways that we did with the brush on a separate layer. So for this one, you can use the paint bucket tool while you're in this mode in order to color it however you like. So maybe we'll do teal there, and let's do maybe a pink here, sure, and then maybe a yellow down here. Whoa, that is neon. That's too bright for me. Let's go a little darker. How about this? And then there's like a yellow color. So we can create that same multicolored look with the stamp open as a PNG in a separate file. Then if I wanted to take this whole piece and copy it and paste it onto a canvas, I can by simply selecting it all, copying it, and then pasting it, and I can move it around, right? So it's automatically starting as its own layer because I've pasted it in. Now I can also, let's undo all of this and bring it back to that black. I can also change the entire thing to a specific color in a couple of different ways. The first way is to come up to select and color range, and then you can grab the color, which is going to be black, and generally speaking, most stamps, when you have them as a PNG file, are going to be black when you open them. So I can select that black color, hit OK, and now it's going to have the little marching ants around the whole thing. Then I can select any color I want. So maybe this one I'm going to do like a teal. How about like this dark teal? Sure. And then we'll go up to File, Edit, and Fill. And I want to fill this with the color I just selected, which happens to be in the foreground. So I'm going to say foreground color, hit OK, and it's going to color in the entire thing with that one single color. Then I can deselect that, and there we go. Generally speaking, when I am using stamp sets, I most often use them as a black image so that it shows up with a lot of contrast on my photos, or I will use them as white when my photos are a little bit on the darker side so that it again builds in that contrast and lets you see the image really nicely. So what if I wanted this whole thing to be white? I can totally go through the whole layer or select, color range, selecting it and changing it to the background color. That is one way I could do it. Another way is to come over to the hue and saturation setting in the adjustments. When you click on that, you're going to get a lot of different options or a lot of different sliders for how you can color your image, the hue, the saturation, and the lightness. What I will often do is click on this hue and saturation, go to lightness, and I'm just going to drag my bar all the way to the edge. And now it turns it white instead of black. I can merge those layers together, and now I have a white version that I could add onto whatever canvas I want it to go on. So really it's whatever functionality is easiest for you, that is what you're going to want to use. So there wasn't a ton of extra steps with the hue and saturation versus the select color range for Photoshop Creative Cloud, but I just generally like to use the hue and saturation just because it's right here and I don't have to filter through a bunch of menus to get to it. Okay, so I believe that is going to be it for Creative Cloud. So let's head over to Elements, Photoshop Elements, and I can show you the same things there because for the most part, you can do all of the same things on Photoshop Elements. So first, let's go ahead and open up a PNG stamp, and I'm going to use my Move tool so that we have a normal pointer. I also want to open up a blank file. Let's see, let's make this a 3x4, and I don't want you to be grayscale. I want you to be RGB. Color, background contents, white. Okay, there we go. So there's our 3x4 card, and here is our camera. So in the PNG form that it is right now, we can do the same thing from before, use the paint bucket, choose a different color, and then simply, with the layer selected, paint in the sections that we want to color something differently, right? You know what, I'm going to multicolor this just because I like the look of it, and why not? So let's do like yellow and purple, black, and how about orange? Kind of Halloween looking. All right, so with this colored, we can now select all of it, copy it, come over to our blank canvas and paste it in. For this, I'm going to have to resize it just because it's too big for the space, but there we go. So that gives me the camera. Let's undo that. This time, what we're going to do, because if you remember, Photoshop Elements does not have the color range capabilities that Photoshop did. So you won't necessarily be able to do that in Elements. However, you can go to the adjustments, which is going to be the half dark, half light circle here at the top of your layers panel. Go down to hue and saturation, and then you see those same settings from before. So hue, saturation, and lightness. You can take the lightness slider, go all the way to the right, and then we can close out of that and merge these layers together, and now we have a white camera instead of a black camera that you can then add to a photo. So let's go ahead and open up that photo, the same photo from before. We can select all, copy, and paste it onto the photo. And there we go. Whoops. No, I want to go from the corner. There we go. So then you can resize it, move it where you want it to go, and we are set. Now let's turn our attention over to the brush again. I want to go back to our plain canvas here. In the brush settings, right now I'm set at 45 degrees. I need to put this back to 0. That's much better. And sure, we'll do here for the photos. So if I were to just stamp this, it's going to be orange because I have changed my color to orange. I can change this to whatever color I want, and then it will stamp that color. So that's a great way to change the color of the entire stamp if you want the whole thing to be the same color, just different from the original. Then we can use the paint bucket tool if we want to individually color certain letters or certain parts of the sentiment. So in this case, I am coloring every other letter yellow by painting yellow onto the letter. So that allows you to really customize how this is going to look. In order to do the clipping of the photo into any sentiment, it has to be on its own separate layer. So you can have it as just the PNG that you add to a separate canvas and then you add the photo on top of it. Or you can use a brush, but it needs to be on a new canvas. So we'll go Control or Command Shift and the letter N in order to create a new layer. So there is our new layer number 2. I'm going to go ahead and stamp the Here for the Photos in yellow. I'm not going to bother changing the color because I'm just going to clip a photo into the letters anyway. Then we're going to come over to our photo. I don't need this on here anymore. So let's just grab the photo itself. We're going to select all, copy. We're going to come back over and we're going to paste. Now we need to make sure that the photo itself is directly above whatever shape we want to clip it into. And I'll show you a little bit more what I mean about that in just a second. With the photo layer selected, we're going to click right on our mouse and go down to Create Clipping Mask. And that's going to put the sky with the clouds, and we can move that around so it has more clouds or less clouds just based on where the photo is. It's going to add that into the words. What if the photo was on top of the camera? In this case, first of all, you can see the Here for the Photos on the top side of the photo. If I were to go over to the layer and right click and click on Create Clipping Mask, it's actually going to clip it inside of the camera instead. So it will clip it into whatever it is directly above. Okay, so that covers that. So some fun ways that you can take these stamps and really customize them for yourself, whether that is to create a multicolored look, to create kind of like a dual colored look where you've got the two colors next to each other, like this one, where you can add more dimension, more texture into your digitals by clipping in photos into them. And even photos of things that are textured is really awesome. Like if you have a photo of, say, burlap, and then you clip that into your text, now you're going to have a burlappy looking text for your project. And that's a really fun way to add more dimension or more texture without adding more dimension. All right, so that covers our color changing. So you've got the hue and saturation, which is in the adjustments. We have the paint bucket tool. We have the changing of just the swatch if you are using a brush. We have color range if you are using Photoshop Creative Cloud. Lots and lots of different ways to change the color of your text. It's just going to be whatever is easiest and makes the most sense for you. For this last lesson working with stamps, what I would like for you to do is to try out all of the different ways that you can change the color of your stamp. So first, we're going to be working with the brush, and I want you to use your foreground color swatch in order to change the color when you are initially stamping it. And then I would love for you to create a stamp using a brush on a new layer, and then use your paint bucket tool and or if you have Photoshop Creative Cloud, the color range tool to change the colors to either something completely different if you're using color range, or to a multicolored sort of look if you're using the paint bucket. And then open up a PNG style stamp and change the color for that one as well using the paint bucket, and then also using the hue and saturation slider. So it'll give you a little bit of a feel for all the different ways that you can accomplish a lot of the same things, and it will help you to figure out which method works best for you. This is going to be our last lesson working with stamps, both PNG and brushes. I hope that this month has been helpful for learning some new techniques with these types of digital products. For the next 2 months, we're going to be deep diving into creating full digital / hybrid layouts inside of Photoshop. So I'm going to show you how you can use Photoshop to design a layout prior to actually creating the layout, how to use layer templates, how to create layer templates, and more. So taking everything we've already learned and putting it together to actually create layouts inside of Photoshop. I'm very excited for this. These are the lessons I have looked forward to the most for this entire class. So I hope to see you back here then. Until then, friends, I hope you have a wonderful rest of your day,